So in this one, we actually want to update our CSS to make sure that our fonts are actually thin. So if we see here, it's nice and thin. Let's actually change these too. So I'm going to select one, go to Inspect Element, and then over here on Element Style, I'll do Font-Weight, and I'll change it to 100. Now there's other values you can put here as it shows right there. You can go up to 900, and it will make it nice and thick for you. Or you can go down to 100 and make it nice and thin. So what I'll do is actually add Jumbotron H1, so the class of Jumbotron, and then the H1 tag. I'm going to add a font weight of 100. So let's go into Sublime Text, and I'm going to go into home.html. And in styles, I'm just going to go to .jumbotron H1, and I'll do font weight of being 100. So if I refresh in here, I now have my font weight of 100. And now if I go to Inspect Element, I might want it also in my paragraph tag. So I can do Jumbotron. I'm going to copy the whole thing and just change this to P. Refresh, and that's nice and thin too. But that might be too thin. So maybe we want to do 300 here, or even down to 200. And we might even want to change the size of it to being a little bit bigger. So I'm going to do 21 pixels. Refresh. And it looks like it's already 21 pixels. Yes, it is. So maybe we want it to be 23. Or we could even look at our Swift for Entrepreneurs to see how big that one is. That has a font weight of 100, and the font size is 30 pixels. So let's do that. 330 pixels. All right, so now if we go back into here, we refresh. That's kind of big, right? Oh, and I did not change the font weight down to 100. It's a lot of text, so it's just really going to depend on how much you're actually going to write here, right? Like this one says it just a little bit of stuff, where this is quite a bit. So I'm just going to delete some of it so it actually makes more sense. And I'll just delete all this and use it as a starting point to create something more unique. Cool. So that's getting closer. Now let's actually change the button. So the button is right here, and we're going to call it BTN block. So it's the entire width of what it's in. And I'll do, instead of success, I will do default and do a refresh, and there we go. So now it's definitely looking a lot more like our button in here, and change learn more to be first. And then we want to change a tag for it as to where it's going to go. So href equals to, I'm just going to do hashtag signups, or actually just sign up. So this is going to take us down to the sign up form. So all I need to do is I can add an ID of sign up to the container that it's in, which is right here. So we have sign up there now, and if I click on it, it will take me down to there, and then also I can use that as a link that I can share with people, and it will take you to that area. All right, so now this container, this form, we might want to have our text being white. So depending on how your background looks, you might want to change the text. So in this case, I'm going to just change it to color of white. See how that looks? That actually does not look good. Where on Swift for Entrepreneurs, white is pretty much the only one that's really going to work on that background. Where this one, black might work okay. I mean, it just depends on where you are with the image. But it looks like there's a lot of white coloring, so this might actually just overlap too much. So then again, that's going to be up to you. And you could also just pick something that might just stand out a little bit more. So maybe you want to use the same orange that we used before on the top. So let's go ahead and grab that. And I'm just going to add it in here. And that sticks out, but it's not necessarily the greatest color for an image or for a sign up form. That's going to be up to you, kind of how you want to do that. All right, so I'm going to leave it as orange. And then what I'll say here is be first, or what did I say up here? Unlock first, so unlock first. And then I have the same type of like icon that I did on the actual share page. So we can open up the share page, and I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to grab this right here, go back into our home page, and then above that, just add that in. All right, so that, of course, is an icon in Font Awesome. And let's say we wanted to do the unlock. I just searched unlock, and here, or I mean, I actually used key on the other one, but I'm just going to use unlock on this one. So change the share, FA share, this right there, to unlock. And if I refresh in here, now it's an unlock. So unlock first. And then you could put some text below the form itself and just do p text and say sign up here, get first news on content. Something like that. Now that text is pretty small, so I'm going to just do p class equals to lead. So it just makes it a little bit bigger. All right, so now we're getting definitely a lot closer here. Right, so we see quite a bit of stuff that's actually really shaping up. And then now on the bottom, we have the different actual like sales material. So we're going to scroll down, and within the hello, I'm going to do I'm actually going to copy hello and make another one right below it. So then if we refresh in here, I see that there's now these two like kind of corresponding blocks, and I don't actually want the margin on top or the bottom any longer. So all I want is the margin top for the top row. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then margin bottom for the bottom row. All right, so now it's actually nice and attached to each other, just like what we see here. So then in between these, I'm going to add a HR tag. Actually, that separates it out. So this is where the background stuff takes a little playing around with. So I'm actually going to put that HR tag in the bottom of the other hello tag inside of the column small 12. There we go. So now we have that row coming through, which looks good. So I'm going to add in my 4 columns here. So what I do is I do div class column small 3, because column small 3 will give me 4 rows total, because remember it's divided into 12, so 3 divided by 12 equals to 4. So in here I'll do an H2, and then I'll say feature 1, or actually I'm not even going to give it a number because we're just going to copy it. And then I'll do p class equals to lead, and say some feature text goes here. All right, and then above feature is I'd pick some icon in here in Font Awesome, and let's say for instance we want upload, so FA upload. We can copy this. I'm going to put that above the feature. Go in here and refresh. That's actually really small, so let's change it to, let's say, FA 3x. Okay, that looks better. It's not quite as big as that one, but it fits in pretty well. All right, well, let's do a few more of these. So if I tab all this content in, I can see where that div opens and closes. So there's 4 total there. So now we have 4 all the way across. Okay, that's looking good. That HR line is not coming through very well, so let's actually add div class of row in here. And I'm going to tab all this stuff in. Shift tab, do a refresh. So now it's actually creating some issues for us. So it's not working perfectly or the way I really want it to, so I'm just going to keep it back to how it was. Because without spending too much time on this, we want to just get it off the ground. Okay, so now we have that. Below our, I'm just going to get rid of the HR line. And I'm going to tab all this stuff in. So now I might want to add a padding bottom of 40 pixels. So this is going to add just a little area down here on this first row container. So if we grab this row here, it's adding padding on the bottom. So padding bottom is 40 pixels, right? So if I change that, it just moves. So don't get it confused with margin, because if I added margin bottom, it would show the background. Now, normally, if you don't have a background image, that's not a big deal, right? But we have a background image. So, oops, I meant to do margin bottom 30 pixels. So that's where the margin actually comes in, where padding itself is just adding a little bit of extra inside of that division tag that itself. Okay, so we will keep the padding bottom of 40. All right, and we can also do border bottom 4 pix solid, and I'll do black. That's actually way too thick, so I'll do 1 pixel solid and gray instead of black, so it's just a little bit lighter looking. That might be too dark of a gray, so if I go to inspect element here and click on the row, I'm going to change this to 777 and just see how that looks. Still too dark. So let's just kind of play around with the thickness or the color of it. That's pretty nice. So EEE. We will just change it to that. Do a refresh. All right, so we just changed it to the hex color of EEE. All right, so now we have this gray line, and notice that there is not that much space above hello. So now, down here, we're going to do padding top. I'm going to see 40 pixels, see if that works. So being consistent with the other one was 40 pixels on the bottom. And then I just added 40 pixels on top here. Okay, so that takes care of that line, right? So if we actually change the size of this, that line's still there. It's very subtle, and that's the point, is to make it subtle. And to be consistent, we actually might want to do the padding on this one of being 40 top as well. So let's just go ahead and add that. And the fastest way to do it is actually to get rid of padding bottom and just add a 0 on there. So this handles the top and bottom values. This handles the left and right values. So if I do a refresh, now it's there. We've got padding on the top and padding on the bottom. All right, so if you actually don't want that H1 tag there, or the H1, it looks actually a little bit cleaner, and it looks closer to what we've got here. Cool, so that's good. And now on the bottom, we can just grab this list of features. Go ahead and scroll down and actually paste those into the div column 12. So it's being consistent with what we have above it. So consistency is key there. And this one doesn't have a padding of bottom of 40 either. So let's add that just like what we did above and refresh. And there we go. So now we have, it's definitely a lot closer to this. It's not quite the same, but it's right there. So there we go. We have the feature settings right here. You can change those out however you'd like, and you can keep 2. So let's say, for instance, you wanted these 4 here, and you don't want these outside ones. So that's not actually that hard to do. What I'll actually do to show you is add a whole nother row. So I'm going to copy this whole row thing here. Just paste that below hand. All right, so now we have 3 rows there. And to actually do that, what all we're going to do is delete 2 of these. Could be any 2. I'm just doing the actual ones that we're deleting. And then you do column small offset 3. And if you refresh, now there's 2 right in the middle. And you could do the same exact process down below. And then you would just have 4. Okay, and there's one more thing that I'd like to note is, since these border or these margins and stuff or everything about this is pretty much the same, with the exception of the last one, we probably should turn this into CSS, not have all this inline stuff. Right, so if I scroll down, all of this is inline styles, and we repeated ourselves several times. It would be better if we actually created some row for this. So I'm just going to call this featured row in camel casing. So I'm going to call it featured row or featured dash row, either way. Let's keep consistent with Bootstrap. So featured dash row. I'm going to copy this, scroll up, and this is where I'm going to put it into the styles here. And it's now an internal style sheet, but we don't want to actually copy ourselves over and over again. We'd rather just have the class, and then that way we can even change things. So featured row, scroll down. I want to make sure all 3 rows are called featured row. Okay, so now I'm going to actually copy all these styles here. Scroll up, featured row, styles are now there. I'm going to press enter a couple times to make sure that I've got this all written out correctly. All right, and if we notice there's this margin top, we can delete that because it's not relevant anymore. Okay, so now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to make sure all of my rows do not have this any longer. The style tag no longer needs to be there because we just added feature row of a class to it. So if I refresh in here, it's still the same and it's looking good. So there's really not a whole lot left that we would need to do. Again, maybe you don't want to have this little gap down here, or maybe you want to have gaps in between each one of these features. So that's up to you. That's kind of how you want to style your site and how you want it to look. But now at this point, we pretty much have it exactly designed like what we've got on Coding for Swift for Entrepreneurs. And if we sign up, there's still on the sign up page, there would be one of these rows on that actual sign up page. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this row out, and I'm going to paste it into the base styles because we're going to want to use it more than just the home page. So let's go ahead and copy one of these rows then, and I'm going to grab the featured row, the entire thing. And now on my share page, underneath or at the very bottom of everything, I think it'd be right about there. We're going to add that in. And I'm going to just add in my email here, hit join, and there we go. So now this is at the bottom, and what we see here is the border at the bottom is showing up. Maybe, for instance, we don't want to have the border on the share page, but we do want it on every other page. This is where we could change it. So we would just go to block script, or not block script, but block styles in block. Let's make sure that we don't have block styles in here already. We do not. And we go to base to see how we have the style set up. We don't have it inside of the style block, so we just add the block itself, so style. And now we can grab that style, which was featured row, dot featured row, border none, important, refresh, that border goes away, and we can add an HR tag above it, so it's just like our other one. So HR, maybe we want to have the HR line above that, and then there it's nice and spaced out. So now maybe you don't want to actually have it in the rows themselves, or you could just leave the HR line off completely. And there you have it. So now we would be able to actually add these features, and of course we can take off that offset. And this would be very similar to like what you see on Swift for Entrepreneurs. And now we have other types of features down here that might explain, what you're winning or anything more there. So the last thing that I'm going to do is change this color to match the color on our homepage here, so that orange. So that's just going to change that nav bar. So we're going to go to inspect element here, and we're going to grab the nav bar right here. And all we need to do is we're going to change the background color to that orange color, as well as this border color. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy this nav bar inverse styles, and then into our styles. So this is on the share page. We're going to grab that nav bar inverse and paste it in there. And we could actually, better yet, we should probably move this to the base.html page, because it should be once we actually flip it over, we probably want to keep this background color of our nav bar, of whatever it is that we're working on. So let's go to home. I think this is where we put it. Yep, home. So border top. There's that orange again. And in the base, we are going to change these to being the same. Then I'm just going to add important on here to make sure that that definitely takes that styling. Save that, go back into our project, run a refresh, and now it's orange. Cool, so that is what we want to see. And then what we did a little bit ago was changing all of this text. We could change the exact same stuff here to be matching that as well. So if we go on our home page, well, maybe we could just copy this or cut it out and paste it into our base. Do a refresh in here. And now these styles actually come through there as well as at our home page. Perfect, that's what we want to see. And then let's see on our share page, something I don't like is how this is doing that. So I actually want to put earn rewards onto a new line. So let's scroll down, and after the ampersand, I'm just going to add in a break there. There we go. So that's starting to look good. And let's see, let's go back to our home page, and we see that that's there. Okay, great. So if we go back, all right, so it looks like everything's just about there. And let's go ahead, and we might even want to change our, obviously we'd want to change our project name here. So in our nav bar, we would just say our project name. So in this case, I'm going to call it launch with code. Okay, so we got launch with code. And yeah, that's starting to really come together. I think we are pretty much done with that page. Let's look at this page. Looks like we're done with all the styling. The styling seems to be okay, and then functionality seems to work. Okay, so in the next one, we are just going to prepare to actually launch this and bring it live onto a real web server so we can actually start getting this thing going. All right, so we will see you in the next one.